All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Nutrition 101. Today, we're just going to dive in and have a quick chat about some of the nutrition myths and then some of the nutrition facts. I've been doing and teaching nutrition for a very long time, and oh my gosh, is there not so much confusion out there? There is so much noise when it comes to all of the information available through your doctors, through your nutritionists, through your dietitians, online. It's just so convoluted and conflicted. The first myth, essentially, is that food is either good or bad. You know, if you really dive in and look at the studies out there, everything is going to be bad for you. You know, now the new study that came out saying coconut oil is bad for you, when just a few weeks ago it was the best thing in the whole entire world. So coconut oil is bad for you, and then butter is bad for you, and margarine is bad for you, and hydrogenated oil is bad for you, and then olive oil, unless it's virgin and unrefined and raw and cold pressed, it's bad for you, and then too much is bad for you, and whatever you pair it with is bad for you. Not only are the fats bad for you, but protein is bad for you, and meat is bad for you, and it causes colon cancer, and so we shouldn't be eating any meats, right? And then, well, what about fruit? Fruit has too much sugar, so that's bad for you. All of the grains have phytic acid and oxalates, and they're not digestible, so they're all inflammatory and bad for you. And then vegetables, well, they all have pesticides, and they're genetically modified, and they're grown in unfertile soil, and so they're bad for you. Essentially, what's good for you? Water and air? Well, in our water, there's fluoride and chlorine and all sorts of other toxins, and our air is filled with pollution. So we might as well just die. Essentially, that is pretty much the rhetoric that's out there about food and nutrition, and it gets really overwhelming, especially for people who have health issues where they're looking to this information to heal themselves. It causes a lot of restriction, deprivation, anxiety, stress, confusion. You know, I know definitely for myself, with all of this information being laid out, it's like, okay, well, there's just nothing that I can do. So that's the first myth. And we're going to dive into the truth that's on the other side of that myth. But just being aware that that's like laying down the foundation of this conversation is to just being able to navigate through all of that noise. So second thing is the myth is that there's a right versus a wrong diet. You know, like the vegan diet is the right diet because it's this. It's better for the environment. There's less of this. It's less toxic to the body, alkaline versus acidity, you know, and there's a lot of people that will advocate for the vegan diet for all sorts of moral reasons, ethical reasons, health reasons, and so forth. But then there's the paleo diet saying, well, hey, you know, look at what we're able to do. We're able to feed ourselves off of the ancestral diet, what our ancestors, what caveman would have eaten, which are wild meats and fruits and veggies, like omitting some of the inflammatory foods, like the fried foods, the refined foods, and the grains. And they're doing well. Well, then there's the ketogenic people who are saying, well, paleo is not good and vegan's not good. Now it's just, we don't even want to be fueled on carbohydrates or glucose. We want to be fueled purely on fat. And that's the best way to optimize the brain and the hormones and the this and the that, the other thing. And then there's the majority of the population that just don't even care and eat whatever the hell they want. And they're still alive too. Now, the thing is that if certain diets work for certain people, and there's tribes and communities and cultures all around the world that are eating all sorts of different diets, and they're all, you know, okay or living, and yet they do still have some sort of illnesses or diseases or you know, circumstances that affect their health. It's like, well, what is right versus what is wrong? And is there a standard there? Is there some way that we can standardize food, nutrition, diet, cultural eating, ways of life across a global scale? Because that's what science is trying to do, reproduce these results and be like, okay, so what is the best diet? What is the best way of eating? And again, that becomes really confusing because there's so many things that we have to take into consideration, like the time of year. You know, if it's wintertime, like we have here in Canada, well, are we going to be eating a fruitarian type diet where that is beneficial for possibly people in the Caribbean? If it's, again, say wintertime in North America and Canada, are we going to be eating foods that are local and seasonal to, say, Costa Ricans? does it make sense to be doing that? Or would it make more sense to be eating foods that grow at that time of the year here? Also, amount of sun, daylight, there's just so many factors, as well as cultural, right? Like what did you and your ancestors evolve eating? Say in Asia, they normally were not introduced to dairy products. And so they actually lack the enzymes in their body to break down lactase, which is the milk sugar. And so for generation upon generation, they were not eating this certain food. And so they actually evolved to not really be able to. Where cultures, say in Northern Europe, like Sweden and Denmark and Germany and Holland, they consume quite a lot of dairy products, and they seem to be doing quite well. They have a very low rate of illness and disease. So again, taking what works for one population and trying to apply it to another may not be culturally appropriate. From an anthropological standpoint, even a scientific standpoint. So just to take that into consideration. Now, the third myth is that you need to count and track and know exactly the ratios and proportions and the numbers to be able to be healthy, right? We have all sorts of apps and calculators and BMI and, micronutrients, macronutrients, all of that. And a lot of people think when they're trying to get healthy or trying to lose weight, or trying to reverse some kind of symptom or manage some kind of symptom in their body, that they need to be so specific, like how many people have spreadsheets on Excel trying to figure out and map out their pathway to health. And what I've seen in my practice, in my personal life as well, is that is extremely stressful and exhausting. And not only that, but it just causes so much constriction, and restriction and micromanagement. What I've seen and what's been shown in the plethora of studies, especially now coming out, is, studies on the vagus nerve and the connection mind-body, is that stress is actually the number one factor in the majority, if not all, diseases and illnesses, as well as digestive issues, as well as weight gain, obesity, diabetes, cancer, stress, constriction in the body, the blockages in the body have so much more to do with our overall health than what we're actually putting in or the amount that we're putting in. So the idea that we need to count and track and micromanage all of our numbers in order to have a healthy diet is completely wrong. If you look back even, 50 years ago or 100 years ago, or really back to our ancestors, they weren't tracking. They just listened and they were in tune with their body, right? They were just like, okay, how do I feel? What do I need? And I mean, it was also basically what was available around them. And now, because we have all of the options in the world, it gets a little confusing again. But I think that really, like, asking yourself, what does my body want right now? And allowing yourself to develop that intuition, to develop your own inner knowingness about what your body needs, is the most powerful thing that you can do. So that's a little bit about the overview of the myths. So now I'm going to go into what I like to call the facts. The one fact that I can say is prevalent across all cultures, across all of the studies and across all of the clients that I've come across, for myself as well, is that balance is key. So there's a movement away from calling foods good foods or bad foods, and to calling them growing foods versus fun foods. So the growing foods are what we would have called the healthy foods, so the fruits and the veggies and the wild meats, the nuts, the seeds, the whole grains. And those would be the functional or the growing foods. And then there's the fun foods, like the chips and the pizza and the donuts and the pasta and all of the things that might not necessarily be the most vitamin and nutrient dense, but the things that just taste really good and give us excitement, give us some kind of pleasure. Now, for the majority of the studies out there and the rhetoric out there, it's like, oh, those fun foods are bad foods, right? Like, do not eat them. Like, totally cut out all of the dairy and all of the sugar and all the refined and the pizza and the pasta and the cookies and the cake, like, that makes you fat, that causes your cells, and that causes inflammation. And although they might not be the most nutrient dense, they do taste good and they do bring us pleasure. And if you really look into the functional neurology of it, the way that the brain works, something that gives you pleasure sends these signals in the brain, which creates dopamine and serotonin and the positive, happy neurotransmitters in the brain, which make us feel good. And that making us feel good allows our body to shift into the fight or flight, into the rest and digest, into that like calm place that actually enables and allows us to digest our food better. So when it comes down to balance, say you say 80-20 or 75% or whatever your ratio may be, I think it really is important to know that there is a place, an important place within our nutrition or our diet for those fun foods, especially if you love them. Because if you love something and you never allow yourself to enjoy that, what is that self-story? What are you telling yourself? It's causing this cycle of deprivation and this restriction. I can't have that. And the more you tell somebody or something or yourself that you can't have it, the more you're going to want it, right? So like a child, you can't have that. Well, they want it because we're rebellious in nature. And also I think that our body is so intelligent that it knows that it needs that balance, right? Perfect alkalinity versus acidity in the body, in the blood is 7.5, right? So it's not 100% alkaline. Nothing can be 100%, even yin and yang, even the energies of the world or any spectrum has that balance. So just knowing that in a healthy diet, it is important to treat yourself with the donut if you love it. And then just know, okay, well, I just had this donut. Maybe my next meal can be a nice stew or a nice salad, or I'll have lots of veggies, or I'll have some fruits, and I'll go for a walk and I'll do some deep breathing or maybe yoga and have an exercise, a workout session. Really bringing in that balance so that you feel good and you're nourishing yourself, not just from a health standpoint in terms of food in the body, but also from a mental health and emotional health standpoint, because really that first and foremost is the most important. So second fact is that food really is more about the intention and the energetic and the symbolism rather than an objective truth. So just like all of the emotions, there's like a hierarchy of emotions in terms of frequency and vibration, peace and enlightenment and joy being the highest vibrations, and then fear, doubt, envy, jealousy, shame, blame, guilt being the lower vibrations. Well, with the universal law of like attracts like, the vibration in which we resonate at, our emotional self, will attract and be drawn to foods that match that frequency and that vibration. So oftentimes, people who are suffering from anxiety, depression, paired maybe with diabetes or obesity, like feeling heavier and lower and deeper, they would be more attracted to that kind of food. So the quote unquote junk foods, or the heavy foods, the donuts, the ice creams, the cakes, the pastas, the foods that make you feel heavy, because like attracts like. Now, if you look at anger or like an aggressive frequency, now that's higher than guilt and shame and blame, but that aggressive frequency, say maybe people who do a lot of competitive sports or train a lot of we'll use the CrossFit population. I'm not saying CrossFit people are angry, but there's often an aggression to that. And that frequency matches very well with the frequency of salty foods and meats, because there is more of a yang energy and more of an aggressive and mobile energy to it. And so they pair together. Now, if you look at, say, people who are very into yoga and spirituality and the art of Zen Buddhism, like some of the lighter frequencies, they often tend to be vegetarian. They often tend to be drawn towards vegetables and fruits and nuts and seeds and sprouts. Now, I'm not saying this is universal, but this does tend to be a generalized trend. So again, you can see how like attracts like. Now, when you understand that, you can also use food as a tool. So you can use the energetics as a tool. So say you're feeling heavy and lethargic and you've been eating pizza, pasta, cake, and donuts for quite some time. If you want to feel lighter, well, what are you going to do? Use the foods that are in the lighter frequencies and the lighter energetics, right? If you want to feel aggressive, if you want to get moving, if you want to like stir things up, You can have the meats, and which can really help to invigorate the body. You know, a lot of times when people are sick or depleted, they would be given meat to absorb the energetics of the animal, to absorb all of the amino acids and the proteins, and really rebuild their bodies. So seeing food as functional, and even, you know, using energetics, or just seeing it for what it can do for your body as a tool or as a medicinal is really important and kind of cool to be like, okay, well, how do I feel? What do I need? And what can I use to bring balance to that? The ancient healing and nutrition modality of Ayurveda is well known for this, bringing the body into balance. If you have too much fire in your body, well, you're going to bring some light water qualities into your body. If you have too much earth quality, so too grounded and too heavy, you're going to bring, say, like more air qualities. And so it's just, again, bringing that balance back into the body. So that goes into the frequencies and the energetics, and now the intention. I really like to look at foods and ask myself, okay, am I eating this? Am I consuming this from a place of self-love or self-abuse? The other day I had a half a bag of chips, and I don't normally eat chips, but I had a great weekend. I was eating super healthy. You know, we were driving back home. We had a 13-hour drive. I was with my friends, and I decided that, man, I just want chips. I'm tired, and I just want some chips. And it was like, okay, what's my intention here? I want them. Not because I feel shitty, not because I feel bad, not because I feel guilty about whatever, not because I never eat them and I'm going to like stuff them in my face because they're there, but just because I want to. And that was powerful. That was really intentional, empowered, intuitive choice. And I felt great. No stomach ache, where normally I would have imagined that I would have had a stomach ache. No stomach ache, no pain. I just felt good. And then this morning it was like, well, what do I want? A nice bowl of berries and fruits. And I'm like, okay, the intention behind this is to nourish my body. The intention is to satisfy myself. The intention is to bring in some self-love. This is what my body's craving. This is what my body's needing. So I'm going to nourish myself with that. Now, oftentimes when people experience binge eating, it's a totally different intention. It's often, I'm not feeling good and I want something to make myself feel better because I don't feel good. Or I'm such a bad person for eating this donut, so I'm going to eat 5 more. I already messed up, so I might as well just keep going. I already screwed up, so I might as well. I don't feel good enough, or I don't feel worthy, or I didn't get this job, or my boyfriend didn't return my call. I feel like crap, so I'm going to eat things that make me feel even more crappy, right? Because again, like attracts like. So getting in tune with the intention and the energetics and the frequencies of food and how you're using them, what your relationship to yourself through them is very powerful, and something that I invite you to start contemplating and thinking about. Which brings me into the third fact. The thing that really matters is your state of mind as well as your mindfulness. So you can eat the most beautiful, delicious, healthy, nourishing salad. However, if you are in a state of stress, if you are worried or, you know, on the phone and answering emails and doing all sorts of things, your body will not be able to digest the food, because yourself can only be in 2 different states. The brain operates in 2 different states. One is rest and digest, and the other one is fight or flight. And this has to do with your amygdala and your hippocampus and your pituitary gland and all of the different glands in your brain, your sympathetic versus your parasympathetic nervous system. I'm not going to get too much into that, but just know that you can only be in 2 different modes. Fight or flight, which is, you know, kind of in that stress state, or rest and digest, where you're able to rest, rejuvenate, absorb, assimilate, digest your food in that calm place. So being mindful when you go to eat, knowing, okay, is my body in a state that it's going to be able to receive the food that I'm putting into it? That state of mind. And mindfulness, looking at your food. The way, even before that, even with choosing your food, okay, choosing mindfully, preparing mindfully, sitting down mindfully, taking your fork and poking it in and looking at it and appreciating, and then chewing. So chewing is so important, something that we don't do. We don't do enough. And why is chewing important? Well, for different reasons. The stomach, first of all, does not have teeth. It is not able to chew. Yes, it has peristalsis, which can mash up the food, but it does not have the ability to chew the food. So it's quite important that food goes down more of a liquid form than a food form. So not just from the physical component of why chewing is important, but also our saliva has enzymes called salivary amylase, which helps to digest carbohydrates. So carbohydrates actually don't start digesting in the stomach, they start digesting in the mouth. Even before that, they start digesting in the brain, so mindfulness, but then in the mouth. So the fact that grains are not digestible, what if it's simply that we're not chewing them properly? So they're going down still whole, and they're not able to be broken down by our stomachs because our stomachs don't have teeth. And so then they're passing through mainly whole, right? So chewing. That's a big part of mindfulness. Another part of the mindfulness is, okay, well, we talked about carbohydrates being digested in the mouth initially. Well, proteins, they're not initially digested through the enzymes in the mouth, but they are digested in the stomach through enzymes that are released from the pancreas, as well as hydrochloric acid, which is released by the liver and the gallbladder to break down the protein. Now, how does that happen? It's not that food goes into our guts and then this enzymatic process happens. That's not what triggers it. It's our brain. Our brain gets a signal that we're eating, not from chewing, but from mindfulness. And then it sends the hormones down the spine, from the brain to the spine to the organs to start digesting. Okay, so the neurotransmitters, okay, right, we're eating, we're doing this, cool. That's what happens. Now, if you're not mindful, your body isn't really aware that you're eating because your brain hasn't released the neurotransmitters to signal that process. So it's super, super important to be mindful and chew. We got it? Amazing. Okay, great. So I know I mentioned this a little bit before, but a big fact of what's good versus bad or healthy or the right thing to do when being in relationship to what you're eating is really getting in tune with your unique self. So something called intuitive eating. Now, like I had mentioned before, there's every diet in the world out there, and all different populations have all different kinds of diets, and even within our own cities, there's so many different ways of eating. And so trying to look for the answers in a book or online or through a reflection of somebody else is not necessarily what's going to work best for you, because we are all so bio-individual. We are so unique at the cellular level, right? None of us look alike. None of us have the same fingerprint. None of us are the same blueprint as anyone else. Even identical twins are a little bit different, right? So it's really important to get to know your own body. And you can, at first it's hard because we're not taught to do this. And our society, we can go out and have every single food in the whole entire world, processed, non-processed, whole, non-whole, like foreign, ethnic, whatever. So it's like, what do I need? We're so removed from our natural habitats that we've forgotten. So it's kind of this unraveling of the layers and getting back to like, okay, well, what do I want? And why do I want it? And how does it feel in my body? So there are different ways of doing this. I mentioned a few, as well as doing a cleanse to kind of reset your body, or an elimination diet where you systematically go through and test out the different foods based on different food groups, based at different times. It's a very systematic process where you really get to know your own body. And then you can make up your own nutrition plan, because as much as I can go in, or any professional can go in and kind of look at your body or look at your symptoms and say what they think may be best for you, it's still a process of educated guesstimation. And it's not as effective as you getting to know yourself. So I definitely invite people to trust their bodies and to trust their minds, and to really align the mind-body with what you're needing for yourself. And a way that you can start to do this is, again, by mindfulness and asking yourself, like, what am I craving? What does my body need? Like how pregnant women crave like pickles and ice cream. Well, oftentimes it's the quality fats that they want and the salts. And so just, again, asking yourself, okay, what is it that my body wants? And then, being easy on yourself, because it's not always easy. It's complicated sometimes, with all of the information out there, and with all of the stress out there, and with all of the factors that can be taken into consideration. we're not going to be perfect. You know, you're not always going to eat the best diet or follow what you've wanted for yourself. And you might be on what you think is on a wagon and then feel like you've fallen off a wagon. And there's you know, that shame that comes with that, or the negative self-talk. And it's just really important to know that, you know, as human beings, we didn't really come to earth with one manual on like how to be a human being. And so just go easy and have compassion throughout this journey. And, you know, just tell yourself that it's okay, that you're doing great. Connect with other people that are on your same journey, and just know that you are supported, and reach out to professionals if you need it, but always with a grain of salt, because everybody is operating through their own perception, through their own subjective representation of themselves through this world, right? So just know that anything that you type in Google, you will find. If you type in, oh, meat is bad, you will find a million things saying meat is bad. If you type in the vegan diet is unhealthy, you'll find a million things saying that. If you type in, you know, breatharian is the way to go, you will find manuals on how to not eat food anymore and just live off of air. And so it's really important to just be aware of that subjectivity and those biases when you are looking for information. So again, back to the intuitiveness and that resonance, that alignment, that feeling. When you are looking for the answers, go within, meditate upon it. You know, like really get to know yourself and your truth. Yeah. So that's pretty much about it. That's all I have to say today about the myths and the facts. And you know, even at the end of the day, even if you're lactose intolerant but you love dairy, have it once in a while. Just take some enzymes. Like, you will be fine. The body is so resilient. Just look, like, there are people that literally eat McDonald's every single day. And although they're probably not running marathons and they probably don't have the best body, skin, or mind, they're still alive. And so bringing in that balance, and just knowing that, like, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be 100%. You don't even have to be 95%. Give yourself I like 82%. If I'm doing anything at 82%, I'm really proud of myself. So yeah, just have that ease. And yeah, that's about it. Do you guys have any questions? You can type them in the chat. I would love to hear about that. Let me check in here. Yeah. What about you, Tara? Do you have any questions?
No.
No? Okay, cool. Well, if you guys do, you know, if you have any specifics, you can definitely let me know, whether that be about like acid versus alkaline, what that means or what that is, whether that be about detoxification and the different pathways and the ways that you can do that, whether it be about an elimination diet, or just different tips and tools on how to become more in tune with your body, or how to find balance, or what that means. Or even if, you know, you want to learn a little bit more about the energetics of foods and the frequencies of emotions in relation to foods, I'm more than happy to help you out with that, as well as, you know, micronutrients, macronutrients, what that means and what that means for you. You can get in contact with me via my website at www.samanthalotus.com. You can email me at hey@samanthalotus.com, or check me out anywhere on social media via Real Life But Better. So thank you so much for checking this out today, and can't wait to talk to you soon. Love.